Hello, everyone. I'm so glad that you're tuning in once again this week to the program. I'm your host, Zach Drew.
And I'm Andrew Bellers.
We have an awesome show planned for you again today. I really feel like God has just been continuously downloading more and more content. Once again, it's going to be on the topic of CRT, critical race theory. Don't get tired. There's going to be new news of this. We want to just continue shedding light on it until we almost kind of feel like we're released from doing it. The reason we're so, maybe the word is obsessed with this topic right now, because I agree with people like John MacArthur and others who say that this is the greatest battle for the church in the last 100 years. It's incredibly paramount, that of cultural Marxism. I even believe that whenever Jesus is talking about the time of sorrows, in Matthew 24, where it says nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Where it says nation there, in the Greek it's the word ethnos, which is where we get our word ethnic group. Saying a sign of the times is going to be, you're literally going to see ethnic group rise against ethnic group. And mark those days, because it means my return is nigh, right? That your redemption draweth nigh. And the fact of the matter is this: because that is taking place in the world, that does not mean that is what's going to take place in the body of Christ. I am praying that we become one, like Jesus and the Father are one, in the same way Christ prayed that unto the Father. So we have a lot to break down on this subject once again.
Yeah, and today. Scripture says there's going to be a great deception in the last days, and even if it were possible, the elect would fall to this deception. And critical race theory is a great deception, and many well-meaning Christians are falling into it.
Yeah, and not just the woke liberal Christians that you would expect to fall into this trap. Many incredible conservative, amazing ministries have begun to fall into this trap as well.
Yeah.
Before we get started, I want to thank those who have been giving to the show on a weekly basis. If you want to do so, you can literally, actually, if you have a smartphone, you can text this number, 855-796-1005. The number's on your screen. Just text the word give. Super easy. You can write us at P.O. Box 797, Decatur, Illinois, 62525, or you can go on the website. Click the bright orange donate button. A lot of people are tuning in for the first time, and they don't know the needs unless we share it. So I'll share just a couple of quick things. Just for airtime alone, it's around $75,000 a year. That does not include anything to run the ministry. It doesn't include anything at all, not even to pay the accountant, to pay you and I, or anything. Just for TV airtime alone, nothing else. Yeah, it's about $75,000 a year. So we absolutely need as much help as we can get. How we plan ahead is whenever you click the reoccurring button, so that we know that we can count on it. So many people, they're upset when the likes of myself would ever talk about money, because, people would classify me. I would give myself a different word than this. But people classify me as a televangelist, and they have a bad taste in their mouth whenever we ask for money. But it's ironic. The irony of the situation is that they tune into the show. They love watching the show. They love the content of the show, but don't talk about money. Well, then how are we going to? We do not have a church of 1,000 people. A lot of the ones on TV that do not say, "Hey, we need your help." They have a church of 1,000, 5,000, 10,000.
Tithing
to the church. And yeah, exactly. That's what it is. We do not have sponsors. We don't have a single sponsor of this show. We do not have any product of the show. So we are only relying on people that just love the show and believe in our vision. So if you want to get behind that, do that. Listen, here we go. My voice just cracked. We are in the midst of a historic moment. The politics of today are not just politics as usual. A revolution is emerging that threatens to once and for all snuff out the flickering coals of freedom. The last remnants of the brilliant, burning light of hope this country once was. I'm once again talking about critical race theory, the strain of cultural Marxism designed specifically to bring this nation to its end. What I'm saying may sound overly dramatic to you, maybe sensational to you. I don't believe it is. I believe it's very accurate and it's on point. And if you don't want to take my word for it, then take it from the mouths of the revolutionaries themselves. I want to start out this program by showing you this video, which was released. It's kind of a spooky video, just kind of be aware. Kind of spooky video. It was released this week by Antifa, whether you call it Antifa or Antifa, whatever. Same thing. Same thing as BLM.
Right.
Antifa and BLM, they go by two different names with the exact same goals in mind and in the exact same way, in many ways, to even accomplish their goals, to destroy the system that is systemically racist, to completely eradicate it, get rid of America as we know it, and to create a new utopia.
That's right.
Anytime you hear the word utopia in today's age, just know that it's often talking about a socialistic worldview where we're all equal, equally miserable, equally poor, equally just, we all equally hate life, right? I mean, like, that is what utopia means today. So listen, I'm going to play this video for you. It was released by Antifa this week. It brazenly threatens Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler, saying that if he doesn't resign, he may soon have his own blood on his hands.
Hello. We come to you as a small collective from within the anarchist and anti-fascist community. We do not speak for the whole, as each individual may carry different ideologies and beliefs about how things could, should, or will be accomplished. We hope with this message to simply convey a few points that are commonly agreed upon within this community. The mayor of this city is undeserving of his position. He has made it abundantly clear that windows to him are more important than human lives. But we are not just challenging the idea of having Ted as a mayor. We are challenging the idea of having mayors at all. We want abolition. Abolition is absolute. If peaceful marches, speeches, and voting were enough to bring about that goal, then we would have already been there. Window smashing and riots are a necessary escalation when those in power have proven that they are unwilling to listen and have made the choice to ignore you. We are moving with a sense of urgency because not only is the system destroying us, it's destroying the very planet that we live on. This movement encompasses the liberation of all those oppressed by the system, whether it be black, indigenous, Hispanic, etc. Nobody owns this movement, and wanting to or trying to claim ownership of this movement just leads to more division, which is counterproductive to all of our goals. We are on the same side though, and the more time we spend fighting each other, the less energy we have to fight the true enemy. So let's start local, with our own city's failed leadership. Ted, we are asking for the last time that you resign. If you ignore this message outright, the destruction to your precious way of life is going to escalate. Blood is already on your hands, Ted, but next time, it may just be your own.
Kind of spooky video. Understand that. It needed to be shown. Understand this, that justice to them, listen to the video. Justice to them is to eradicate the entire system. And so it's so much more than just, oh, those, Democrats that, some of them just, they don't seem to love God like I do. And they want more power and to implement things that I just don't care for. It's so much more than that. They want to destroy America. They want to usher in globalism. That's why they're destroying nationalism. Because if you love your country, look at what the kids are being taught in school. If you hate your country, you will be a fan of globalism because America is not great and has nothing to offer to the world. But if you love your country, if you teach nationalism in your schools, what's going to happen? It's going to breed a love for America. We will continue to be a beacon of light unto the world. You see, they're trying to destroy this country, and out of the ashes, the phoenix rises. And it will give birth to globalism and my worldview, would suggest that that would mean that the Antichrist is upon the scene.
Yeah.
He's born, he's living in the world right now, if we're that close to that day. But the goal is to eradicate the entire system. But listen, let's talk about Ted Wheeler. These threats, they shouldn't scare Ted, right? You see, Ted, don't forget this summer during the 90 days of radical riots in Portland. Ted stood with them. He encouraged them. He praised them. He protected them. Ted Wheeler fully supported Antifa and Black Lives Matter, right? And also, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Antifa isn't even real. It's just an idea. That is literally the very words from the most powerful man in the world right now.
That's right.
Whether you will like him or not, Joe Biden is the most powerful man in the world because he is the sitting president of the most powerful nation in the world.
Right.
And to him, Antifa isn't even real. It's just an idea. Listen, here it is from the horse's mouth.
What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
supremacists and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a left-wing problem.
white supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you gotta be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what
It's an idea.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well, then you know what? He's wrong.
we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're
When
moving.
a bat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody
Antifa
in your
is bad.
administration.
Come on, man.
So an idea is burning down hundreds of businesses all around the country.
What a powerful imagination these people have.
Yeah.
Like psychic power, just the buildings are exploding.
The city's on fire.
No, not an idea.
Yeah.
Not an idea. But that's what Joe Biden thinks. They're just an idea. And also, don't forget that President Trump, he tried to help Ted Wheeler many times. Look at this. Trump offers to send National Guard to Portland to quell protest violence. Trump urges Portland to bring in National Guard amid unrest, warns officials they will be held responsible. Stop the riots. Trump threatens to bring in National Guard to Portland protests. But how did Mayor Ted Wheeler respond? Well, here's an excerpt from Mayor Ted Wheeler's letter to Trump, in which he also published on his Twitter feed as a mockery to President Trump. I'll read just a small portion of it. Dear President Trump, yet again, you said you offered to aid Portland by sending in federal law enforcement to our city. On behalf of the city of Portland, no thanks. We don't need your politics of division and demagoguery. Portlanders are onto you. So it really was a mockery. I mean, like, people were laughing at it, like, haha, Ted got one on President Trump.
Yeah.
No thanks, right? Well, now they're wanting for him to resign, or the blood is on his head. You can't appease these people.
Right.
You need to understand that. Whatever they take, you give to them and they want more. And so let's go back to what was in that video. Justice to Antifa, justice to Black Lives Matter, justice to any cultural Marxist in America is to eradicate the entire system. And this isn't a new line of thinking. Don't you remember the clip of the Black Lives Matter organizer, Lilith Sinclair, saying that very same thing a couple of months ago, calling for the abolition of America as we know it? If you haven't seen that clip, here it is now.
Hi everyone. As many of you know, my name is Lilith Sinclair. I am an Afro-Indigenous, non-binary local organizer here in Portland, organizing for the abolition of not just the militarized police state, but also the United States as we know it. I want to make sure that while we are standing here on stolen land, we make sure to
listen to that. Hi everyone, as many as you know, meaning she's a popular person, my name is Lilith Sinclair. And then she gives her credentials to her congregation. Remember, anti-racism today is a religion in and of itself.
That's right.
So she is speaking to her congregation, and she qualifies herself by saying, Pay attention to me. I'm Afro-Indigenous. I'm non-binary. I'm a local organizer here in Portland for Black Lives Matter, right? Organizing not just for the abolition of the militarized police state, but also the United States as we know it, right?
Yeah.
And the crowd loses it. Amen, hallelujah, preach, preacher, because that's what they are. They are, in their religion, they are born again because they are woke. And the priests are qualified by their level of oppression. So she's saying, listen, I'm a priest, people, I'm an Afro-Indigenous, non-binary, the local organizer of Black Lives Matter. She's saying her qualifications unto her religion. This is why there is a coming catastrophe for the evangelical church if they do not buck up and listen, because these doctrines are infiltrating the most conservative. They have infiltrated even the Southern Baptist Convention.
That's
we need to
right.
talk about conservatism when it comes to religion, Christianity, and religion in America.
Yeah, these people are terrorists.
They are.
And, you know, in the United States, we always used to have a policy. You do not negotiate with terrorists because there's no way to appease them. They always want more. They're terrorists.
That's right.
And just like radical Islamic terrorists, these terrorists have a powerful and radical ideology.
That's it. Okay, so I want to do a quick way of review, and then we're going to keep going on. And I'm going to do it quick because there's some things I really want to get to. There's a new religion, and it's the religious nature of anti-racism. You no longer have, people that aren't racist and people that are racist.
That's right.
You are either what?
You're either racist or you're actively anti-racist.
That's right.
There's no neutrality.
Because I would say, oh, well, I'm not racist. But
Right.
they say that word doesn't exist anymore. You cannot be, not racist. You are anti-racist.
It's like what Jesus said, you're either with me or you're against me. There's no middle ground.
And there's a trickery in those words because anti-racist, like you were saying, implies the dimension of activism.
Mm-hmm.
You are standing with them or against them, like you just said.
That's right.
So the anti-racist movement has many of the hallmarks of a cult, including staying close enough to the Bible to avoid immediate detection and hiding the fact that it has a new theology and a new glossary of terms that diverge ever so slightly from Christian orthodoxy, at least at first. In the classic cult fashion, they borrow from the familiar and accepted, then infuse it with new meaning. This allows the cult to appeal to the faithful within the dominant Orthodox religions from which it draws the converts. This is where it gets interesting. This is once again is by way of review. This new cult, this new body of divinity comes complete with its own cosmology, which is critical theory and critical race theory. Its own original sin, which is racism. Its own law to follow, which is the law of anti-racism. Its own gospel, which is that of racial reconciliation. It has its own martyrs, Saints Trevon, Mike, George, Brianna, etc. Has its own priests, the oppressed minorities. It has its own means of atonement, reparations. Its new birth, wokeness, liturgy, to lament. Has its own canon, the CSJ social science. And it has its own theologians, those that are in control of the movement. These are the people that literally even created the terms of critical theory, critical race theory, intersectionality. And those are D'Angelo, Kendi, Brown, Crenshaw, and McIntosh. And they even have their own catechism, right? Say their names, repeat it, say their names, questions, answers, say their names. So it's a new cosmology. Christians have a cosmology, right? In the beginning. Cosmology is the science that deals with how the universe was formed and structured. We get our cosmology from Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. On the first day in the religion of anti-racism, their religion says that white people created whiteness.
That's right.
Let's move on to new material now. The second day. On the second day, according to the religion of anti-racism, white people created white privilege. This is a quote from Peggy McIntosh, one of the leaders of these movements.
She created the word white privilege.
Unbelievable. She says this, I think whites are carefully taught to not recognize white privilege, as males are taught not to recognize male privilege. So I have begun in an untutored way to ask what it is like to have white privilege. I have come to see white privilege as an invisible package of unearned assets that I can count on cashing in each day, but about which I was meant to remain oblivious. White privilege is like an invisible, weightless knapsack of special provisions, maps, passports, codebooks, visas, clothes, tools, and blank checks. So basically, if you have white privilege, you'll never be able to know or see that you have it.
Yeah.
Only others can see that you have it, and you will remain oblivious until the day you die.
And what people need to understand is that white privilege and the way that she's framed it is a myth. It's a total myth. It doesn't exist.
Explain that,
Not in
because
this
that's
way.
such a controversial statement.
It is. So Thomas Soule, we've talked about him before on the program. Long story short, he's a genius. He's a statistician. This is what he does for a living. Here's an article from Real Clear Markets quoting him. This article is from last year. The Migration Policy Institute reported in 2015 that Nigerian immigrants have a higher median household income than other Americans and are more likely to have a college degree, a master's degree, a PhD, or a professional degree, and to be employed in professional or managerial occupations. And here's some more recent information. In 2018, Nigerian Americans had a median household income of $68,000, higher than the almost $62,000 for overall U.S. households. Why is this important?
Because it destroys the theory.
Yes. So some contend, going on with the article, that Nigerian immigrants and their children are different from other Black Americans. But as Thomas Soule has noted, the theory that blacks on average are poorer because their skin color subjects them to racism cannot distinguish these immigrants and their children from other Americans with the same skin color. Racism isn't preventing these immigrants and their children from moving ahead, so it can't be the reason that blacks on average trail economically. So why? Why are they trailing economically? Well, this is Soule's opinion. Rather than racism, Soule has highlighted a different factor as the big break on Black success. While most Black children, this is a quote, were raised in two-parent families prior to the 1960s, with the rise of the welfare state today, the great majority of Black children are raised in one-parent families. So Census Bureau data show that in 1960, this is important, 1960, that is almost 100 years after the abolition of slavery. Why is that important? Because so many people will look at the state of marriages in the Black family today, and they'll say, because during the time of slavery, families were broken up, that the oppression of our country dismantled the idea of marriage in the Black family. Well, in 1960, 100 years after the abolition of slavery, only 22% of Black children lived with a single parent. So what, 78% of families were not broken up, compared with
two-parent households, yeah.
Compared with 7% of white children. By 2019, 51% of Black children lived with only one parent, compared to 21% of white children.
What a difference.
It's insane. Research studies summarized by a July 2020 U.S. Congress Joint Economic Committee report show that those who are not raised in homes with married parents are more likely to experience physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, have worse health, exhibit more aggression, to engage in delinquent behavior, have lower educational achievement, earn less as adults, and to live in poverty. That's why God established the family. The first governing unit in any government is the family that was ordained and established by God. When you destroy the family, you destroy the heart of government.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And that's what's happened in the Black family.
And it's interesting that the Black families in America were doing so amazing in 1960. And so what changed between that and 2019? The Great Society, Lyndon B. Johnson. In the mid-1960s, he unrolled the welfare systems, which disproportionately affect minority groups.
That's right.
And so really, if there is a system that was created with true systemic racism, it's that of the Democratic Party.
That's right. That's right.
It's that of the Democratic Party. They're the ones that have created a disadvantage for minorities. by enslaving them to DC and their political party. They are saying, so white privilege is saying that white people are percentage-wise or disproportionately advantaged for no other reason than being white. So now here's what I really wanted to get to. It's so important. There is a word to fix that. It's a horrible idea. That word is called equity. It is a new word that they have taken, perverted, twisted. Not equality, but equity. So if you are a liberal, how do you solve this made-up problem of white privilege to further your real agenda of a socialistic utopia here on earth? The word is equity.
Yeah.
And we're going to just kind of blow through right here this section. Equity is different than equality. Equality is equal
opportunities.
Equal opportunities. Whenever equity is equal outcomes.
Yeah.
So if we look at the real definition of equality, I'm a fan of that word. They have twisted it, that equality means something perverted today, equality, because if we're trying to create a system where everybody has the same opportunities, you know, it doesn't matter if you're poor or rich, black or white, you're afforded the same opportunities, but then we both have to work hard, be ambitious, make sacrifices to live that American dream, right? If we all are afforded the same opportunities, that is a great thing. But equity is what?
Equity is the equality of outcome.
That's right. So whether you are rich or poor, you are going to have the same outcome. Everyone's even. That is socialism. I want to provide some pretty shocking material. I'm going to read this article, and then I'm going to show you some shocking stuff. The equity mess. 2 days before the 2020 election, Kamala Harris could have picked from any number of campaign themes. Harris and her campaign team chose to emphasize in a tweet, a speech, and animated video a single portentous word that in a remarkably short time has escaped the laboratory of academe, spread through the newsrooms and human resources departments, and now lodged itself firmly inside the White House. That word is equity. For decades, these two divergent philosophical and public policy concepts were represented in a battle over adjectival phrases. Should we strive for equality of opportunity or equality of outcome? The 21st century rebranding of equality of outcome into a shinier and more malleable term, being equity, with its redolence of ownership and fairness, gave activists a linguistic workaround to what had previously been a public relations obstacle of, here's that word, utopian unattainability. I believe this is Joe Biden speaking here. I believe this nation and this government need to change their whole approach to the issue of racial equal equity. The president said 5 days later, while signing some follow-ups on orders, I believe that revealing slip of the tongue, the customary aspiration of leveling the playing field, is being supplanted by a more ambitious promise to audit the validity of the final score. I needed these key words to see what I'm going to say next. To audit the validity of the final score, meaning they can change the final score. The administrative state is being explicitly tasked with rooting out the unbearable human costs of systemic racism. So now, equity deals, the reason that we are implementing equity is to deal with systemic racism by subjecting all regulations, federal agencies, and spending initiatives to the test of whether their impacts are spread equitably across populations. Okay, here's the content I want to show you. I am thinking about the articles stating how they are getting rid of accelerated math class, okay, in Virginia and in California. Not because there aren't many who qualify for those classes and will better prosper and prepare themselves for the future, but because there is a disproportionate percentage of white kids that qualify versus kids of any other ethnicities. I'm not going to get into the articles. I'm just going to show you the headlines themselves. Here is the first article. Virginia plans to eliminate all accelerated math courses prior to 11th grade in an effort to achieve equity. So now every child will be equally, which means equally uneducated. And California is doing the exact same thing. So how crazy of a thought is that? So because there is they've done these studies and they're like, we don't like the percentage of one race over another race. Whenever we all have equality. We have the ability to get to that classroom.
That's right.
But because you are on the wrong color of the color spectrum, because you are white, they're literally getting rid of the classes, which is the most absurd thing to think. So yes, their solution is to get rid of the very classes themselves. This is a clear example of what equity is and how it plays out. It is not about equality, but equality of outcome. So I want to give this example and I'm going to show you this video. So a classroom of students, this is just an example. A classroom of students all takes a test. It's the exact same test for every student. No one is getting a different test, okay? And the correct and incorrect answers given that will be observed by the teacher, they will be based upon your level of oppression. Your test will be altered to match that of your oppression. If this is confusing, let me give you another example. So let's say a kid of Caucasian descent, a white kid, scored a 9 out of 10 on the test. So what did he score? He scored a 90%. And a black kid scores 8 out of 10 on the test. So he scores what? An 80%. But because the system in which the black kid lives oppresses him, he is disadvantaged and does not have the same opportunities afforded to him. So in the name of equity, that child will be graded on a different system and will receive a 90% or even better, even though those answers were not correct. Now, in the same way, it flips. If the black child gets a 9 out of 10, so in this case, he gets a 90%, and a white child receives an 8 out of 10, so he scores an 80%, the score for the white child will not be altered. It will stay where it's at in the name of equity, because it is the equality of outcome. I want to show you this video. It is a video that will either make you cry or laugh. It pretty fairly tackles the issue of equity in a humorous way that displays the sad reality of where we truly are.
And remember, the person with the highest mark will be flying to New York to present their paper at the World Mathematics Summit. Well done, Penelope. 6 out of 10. You too, Simon. 6 out of 10. Unfortunately, Sunshine, your research assignment is only worth a 1 out of 10.
I've used Fourier transform and mathematical methods in electronics to analyze the electrodiagrams of at-risk patients and calculate their risk of experiencing a heart attack. I mean, it's a new method, but it could potentially save thousands of lives.
7.
You barely even read it.
You used red pen.
What?
Red is considered offensive in many religions.
Why would you belittle everything down to a singular colour? Well, humanity is a rainbow of beauty and spirituality.
Yeah. Okay, fine. 7 out of 10, but that still means I get to go to the summit, right?
The marking process isn't over yet. Now, because we live in a society based on equality, the total amount of marks are to be divided equally among our students.
You've got to be kidding me.
Well done, students. We're all equal. We're all average.
Yay! But then who gets to go to the summit?
Oh, we haven't added our privilege points yet. Don't you know anything?
That is correct. Now, Penelope, you are female, so that's +1 privilege point. However, you are white, so that's -1.
I'm also bisexual.
+1. That leaves you with a total score of 6 out of 10. Simon, unfortunately, you're straight, white, and male.
And cisgender.
Yes, so that's -4 privilege points, which leaves you with a total score of 1.
It's only fair.
Now you're male, and I don't like you. So that's -2 privilege points, but you are brown and sexually ambiguous. So that's +2. That leaves you with a total score of 5.
Wait, why am I sexually ambiguous?
And finally, Sunshine.
I'm gay, I'm trans, I'm Asian, I'm overweight, I'm lower class, I'm unintelligent, unattractive, and I also got body odor, and I can't really run properly or tie my shoelaces by myself. And I once watched a pigeon die.
Wonderful, Sunshine. That's 13 privilege points. That leaves you with a total score of 18 out of 10. Well done, Sunshine. You're going to New York.
Hooray, Sunshine!
We knew you could do it!
Let me see this. They've just written equality and drawn love hearts on a piece of paper.
He expressed himself, and it's beautiful.
Well, whether you cried, whether you laughed, it doesn't really matter because it's just truth. That video is a sad reality of where we are in the school systems. And so we are totally out of time for today. Once again, we've got through the first day, the new cosmology in the beginning. The religion of antiracism has created whiteness. And then we got through the second day, which is on the second day, they created what?
They created white privilege.
They created white privilege. There is a third, fourth, and fifth day that sooner or later we'll get to, because I want to do how I've been doing these shows the last couple of weeks is I talk about news, what's happening in the world, and then I want to bring it into really biblically what it means. They are creating this religion, and it is a scary thing if people do not wake up to it. And I want to wake up the body of Christ so that they can see what is taking place. They can guard themselves against it because it is making the rounds in some of the most, what I perceive to be well-guarded conservative ministries in America, and it's being infiltrated. It is a sly snake. Listen, we are totally out of time once again for today's show. We go through the content so quickly. I'm not opposed to doing a 1-hour show, but we'll just have to get to that place where we feel like we can even afford to buy another half an hour of airtime every single week. But so I love you guys, and we'll see you next week.